Composition, rule of thirds, and golden spiral. Composition is the arrangement of the subject or elements within your image space and tells your audience where you want them to look. It draws their eyes to the parts of the image you want them to focus on, as much as lighting and color do. Most images that follow one compositional technique will also follow another. If you compose using the rule of thirds, there is a reasonable chance it will also fit into the golden spiral. Artists often break the rule of composition for aesthetic reasons, but it is important to be able to apply them to strengthen your work and keep the viewer's attention.
Rule of thirds, or the golden ratio, is a simplified version of the golden mean. It affects the ratio of a picture size as well as placement of the main subject in the image. In a rule of thirds composition, the main subject should lie on one of the four lines with focal points, such as the subject's eye, on one of the four intersections, also called power points.
As you can see in this image, here are your four focal points or power points in your image. The giraffe's eye is landing on this power point. His nose is kind of reaching out to this vertical 1/3 grid line, and his head is coming up to the top here.
In these two photographs, they're landscapes, and so what we're looking at here is using just the lines as a guideline as to where to place the horizon. And so we're looking at these horizontal lines, the one on the top and then the one on the bottom thirds. So in this photograph on the left, the horizon line is at the bottom third. On this one on the right, the horizon line is at the top third. And so that's really great because it keeps you from putting the horizon in the middle. When you put the horizon in the middle, or anything that's like horizontal straight through the middle of a photograph or an artwork, it becomes very stagnant and doesn't give the viewer a lot to look at, and it doesn't make it as interesting to look at. This also kind of gives more of like a, I don't know, heavenly feel, if you will, whereas this kind of has more like a watery, earthy feel. And there's a bonus because the duck is on the lower right power point of the rule of thirds grid.
I know we just talked about horizontal grid lines, but now we're going to talk about vertical grid lines. As you can see, these two focal points of these images, the tree and the bottle, they're not resting right in the middle of your picture plane because that wouldn't really create an interesting composition. This tree lies along the left-hand vertical grid line on the left part of the page, and this bottle lies along the right-hand vertical grid line, creating an interesting place for your eye to look. And now that I'm seeing this now, the horizon line here is along the top third grid line, whereas the horizon line here is closer to the bottom grid line. So you can be looking at vertical and horizontal grid lines in your compositional plane.
Okay, this one has some things going on that we just talked about, like the horizon line here is on the top third. We have the focal point, which is the front of this boat, on the bottom power point, bottom left power point. And it's proportionally larger to the back of the boat, which is taking us back in space and also kind of sweeping up towards this power point where there seems to be like an island placed. So it's nice because we kind of have almost like a triangular pattern of eye movement here, and it's also taking us back into space as well. So really thoughtful composition there.
Golden triangles are more convenient for images with diagonal lines. There are 3 triangles with corresponding shapes. Just roughly place 3 subjects with an approximate equal size in these triangles, and this rule will be kept.
And so here you can see the breakup of the space of kind of the overlay that we're using for the golden triangle. And so the black lines are laid out as the rule of thirds, where the space is broken up into thirds like a tic-tac-toe grid. We've got our power points, the red points on the intersecting areas of those lines. And now we have the golden triangle sections as well. And so those are created by having a line that's connecting 2 of the opposite corners of the rectangle, and then coming out from there, the PowerPoints that hit on that line now have a perpendicular line connecting to the corner. So we've got a 90-degree angle here, 90-degree angle here, and here, and here as well. And so now we're starting to see kind of like these triangles that we can use as a way to start to organize our artwork.
As you can see in these two pictures, the artist over here is trying out different compositions with the golden triangles. So they're placing the rocks here on this right angle, and then up here they're shifting their camera and placing the rocks a little bit farther down. The side of this mountain or area of rocks is kind of aligning along that middle line that goes through the whole picture plane. Here the artist tried something different out where they put the rocks even on that PowerPoint focus point. If you wanted to see that image up here without the picture, here it is with two 90-degree angles. In this picture plane over here, the middle line that goes from the top right-hand corner and the bottom right-hand corner of the picture plane actually aligns the bridge along it, and with the perpendicular line, that's where the other part of the bridge is coming in, the vertical part. So that's a neat way to draw your viewer's eye through your picture plane and into space.
Okay, and so here we have two landscapes, and you can really see how different triangles of space fit into the golden triangle overlay, if you will, in these two images. And so the cool thing about this one on the left is that this triangle here is really encompassing kind of more of the foreground of the image. When we look at this tree here, that kind of helps to fill in that triangle. And then we have the middle ground on this triangle, which is kind of the middle size triangle, and then the background kind of fits into this triangle. And so these lines are flexible, especially when you're working with something organic like nature, but it helps you to really think about, it can help you to think about space and then just proportions of areas of the image to others, and how diagonals can help to create an interesting arrangement of that space. So with the waterfall, we don't really have that change in depth between the spaces that are in the triangle, because this feels as close as this does, but this diagonal follows the waterfall up to the corner very nicely, and then this back space area is in this smallest triangle as well. And so the PowerPoint of the golden triangle does fall where the top of the waterfall meets the more settled water.
We have a video here for you to kind of see what I'm talking about here. The golden spiral or golden rectangle has been used at least as early as 400 BC. The golden proportion based on mathematical theory has fascinated mathematicians, artists, and architects for thousands of years. Fibonacci is best known for his use of it in the Fibonacci sequence. Da Vinci and Michelangelo used it extensively, as did countless others. As you can see, there's tiny little markings to show you kind of where they're breaking up those lines.
Okay, so at the end of that, we had the golden spiral. And so the golden spiral is built off of the rule of thirds. It's a mathematically constructed way of organizing your artwork. And so a lot of famous artists have this going on in their work. So here is the spiral, and you can see that over here, Da Vinci flipped it from the view that it has here, and he used it to kind of arrange the Mona Lisa in a way that it creates a sweeping composition. And so the end of the spiral lines up with her hand, and then it kind of grazes her shoulder here, and then as we go through, hits the top of her head, curves around her face, and her nose is at the very inner part of the spiral. And so when you're using the golden spiral, there's ways that you can kind of line up different elements of your composition, different elements of the imagery that you're using with the different lines that create the spiral. So it's all mathematical, and there's lots of different ways that you can flex it around to use it to help your artwork, help strengthen the composition of your artwork.
Golden spirals and other logarithmic spirals capture our eye and imagination due to their similarity to nature, such as cross-section of nautilus shells, sunflowers, pine cones, and cosmos. So these are in things that are very microscopic, or not microscopic, but smaller in nature, but also as big as the cosmos in the universe. So we see this over lots of areas of our natural world.
The spiral or small squares can be placed on the focal point. Perhaps the head of a figure or the eye of a figure. There should be something leading the eye to the focal point of the composition. It could be a line or several objects. Using this technique to compose images can add a dynamic nature to the images through a sense of energy and motion. And just so you're looking at these photographs, you can see how these people are posed and posed within the space, how they're kind of cropped out. That helps to use the spiral in a way that makes the image more interesting for us to look at, and helps our eye to move and sweep through the composition.
Here's another example of a golden spiral in nature. As we can see at the center of the golden spiral, that's kind of like the center part of our flower. This sweeping motion of the spiral is going around the edge of our flower and then leading off to the edge of the composition. So as you can notice here, our flower is on the left side of the picture plane and not right in the middle. That's creating an interesting dynamic composition for the viewer to see.
Okay, and so here, Hokosai, who is an artist that you'll be learning about in your printmaking unit, has actually tilted the spiral, and his wave curves around it. And so the spiral can be used flexibly. You can flip it, you can tilt it, and it can lay over your composition in any sort of way. So you don't have to feel like the inside of the spiral has to be in one particular spot. It really can kind of be flexible within the composition.
And here we have the golden spiral being used by two very famous artists. We have Leonardo da Vinci on this side and Vermeer on this side. As you can see, the golden spiral starts out in this top woman's eye, going around, going around the edge of her face. This perpendicular line reaches down to this woman's ear, and as you see, the spiral goes off of the picture plane, but then comes back down to reach up to both of the women's feet. So Leonardo da Vinci is kind of using this golden spiral technique throughout his whole composition here to really draw these three subject matters together. As we can see over here, the golden spiral goes really well with Vermeer's piece as well. Spiral starts out near this woman's eye, and it follows around her head, and it goes down into her shoulder, and then comes to the bottom of the picture plane. So this is really going around her head to create this composition.
So there's lots of different ways that you could use the spiral. The most important thing is that you're engaging the viewer in your imagery in a way that their eye is going to move through the scene. And so this is actually another interpretation of the golden mean, the golden rectangle, the golden spiral. So there's lots of different ways to use it. It is flexible. And next we'll be showing you how to do that with your collage.